Welcome to Book Bites, your weekly dose of literary delight. We dive into Amazon's top-selling books, giving you the lowdown on what's hot and what's not. Join us as we uncover hidden gems, discuss captivating storylines, and analyze the minds of best-selling authors. Whether you're a seasoned reader or just starting your literary journey, there's something for everyone. So grab a cup of coffee, get cozy, and let's get reading.
All right, so today we're diving into something pretty big, something a lot of you have been asking about, and it's all about, how we're thinking about tackling those huge issues facing society today. And to do that, we're taking a close look at Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson's book, Abundance, to really break down their core arguments and, some of the pushback it's received.
Yeah, I think what's really fascinating here is the core question they pose in Abundance, right? Are we stuck in this scarcity mindset when we're thinking about climate change or housing, always focus on what we lack?
Right.
Or can we flip that? Can we shift to this abundance mindset and actually get busy building solutions? That's the kind of fundamental shift in perspective they're advocating for, and it's pretty powerful.
Okay, so they bring up this term procedural kludge, which I'll admit sounds a bit jargony at first. What's the key idea behind that?
Well, think about it like this. Imagine all these rules and regulations, right?
Yeah.
Put in place with the best intentions, often over many, many years.
Yeah.
But then they become so complicated, so intertwined, that they actually start to stifle progress. It's like they're clogging the system.
Right, yeah.
And this accumulation of well-meaning but ultimately obstructive rules, this procedural kludge, is what they argue is holding us back, hindering our ability to meet these big needs.
Okay, I see. So if these kludges are the roadblock, what's their proposed way forward? I vaguely remember something about supply-side progressivism.
That's it. So having identified these procedural kludges as a key obstacle, the authors champion this idea of supply-side progressivism as a kind of a potential solution.
Okay.
And the core idea is this: proactively increase the supply of essential goods and services. We're talking housing, cleaner energy, better healthcare, make them more affordable, more accessible to everyone.
So it's about creating more of what we need rather than just, rationing what we already have.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, the book also talks about these systemic barriers that get in the way of this abundance. What are some of the main examples they point to?
Sure. They highlight several key systemic barriers, things that are kind of baked into the system. Zoning restrictions, for instance, that limit the type and density of housing we can build. That's a prime example of a procedural kludge, they'd argue.
Right, limiting the supply of housing right from the start.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then you've got these bureaucratic inefficiencies, right, that plague various sectors. They slow everything down, from infrastructure projects to the rollout of new tech.
Oh, I can definitely relate to that.
Right. And finally, there's this risk-averse culture.
Yeah.
A hesitancy to try new things, to experiment with potentially transformative solutions. It's a real hurdle.
Yeah, that makes sense. So that gives us a good overview of the book's main ideas. Now, what about the reception to abundance? What have people been saying about it?
It's been pretty interesting. A lot of reviewers have praised the book for its insightful analysis of, the challenges facing liberalism today. And they really appreciate how clearly the authors explain these complex issues.
Yeah.
The focus on practical solutions, on taking a more proactive approach to governing, that's resonated with a lot of folks, especially those looking for a more constructive, way forward.
Right. But I imagine there's been some criticism as well. Where do some people disagree with the book's arguments?
Oh, absolutely. There are some who argue that the book, oversimplifies some very complex societal problems.
Right, yeah.
They question whether just increasing supply is always the answer, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
They also raise concerns about whether the book fully considers the potential downsides, the negative consequences of rapid expansion, things like environmental impacts, resource depletion, those sorts of things.
So more of a proceed with caution kind of perspective.
Yeah, and they also question whether this abundance mindset, fully addresses the need for sustainable consumption. Not every challenge, they contend, can be solved by simply producing more stuff.
Okay, so a nuanced response overall. What would you say is the big takeaway about the book's contribution to these current discussions?
I think ultimately abundance offers a really valuable contribution by, reframing how we think about these big societal challenges. It encourages a shift from kind of this passive management of scarcity, just trying to do with what we have, to actively pursuing abundance.
Right.
Through innovation, through removing those self-imposed barriers. And that's a really powerful idea.
Yeah, it really is.
Sparks a crucial conversation about how we build a more prosperous, more equitable future by changing not just our processes, but our mindset.
So as you've been listening to this deep dive into abundance, what stands out to you the most about this tension between, managing scarcity and actively building abundance? Can you think of any of those procedural kludges in the systems you encounter in your own life? This book really gives us a thought-provoking framework for understanding these challenges all around us, and we hope this has provided you with some valuable insights to consider. What if, the biggest limitations we face aren't actually material, but rather those self-imposed rules, those kludges that we've created ourselves? That's something to think about.
That's all for this episode of Book Bites. We hope you enjoyed our review, and if you did, please like, share, and follow our podcast. And don't forget to leave a comment with your thoughts on the book. We love hearing from our listeners.